Hi, well, I hope you enjoyed this podcast with James Toseland. I know I certainly did, and so did Gav. With regards to swearing, there's a little bit, not much. I got a little bit carried away when I was telling a few stories, standard for me. So hope you enjoy and just be aware.
Now then. James has just texted me. It's a different name. He's just texted you. So that first one was wrong. I'll just forward it on to you.
All right. Okay. Yeah. No worries.
So that'll make it a bit easier.
No dramas.
No worries, mate. No worries.
I was doing Australian.
I was doing French. Hey, have you been watching? Now this will be an interesting one for you. Have you been watching Gordon, Fred, and Gino?
I've seen it before. I've not seen it this time.
Yeah, good. I like it, and I thought, I wonder if Gav likes it. I've got a feeling you won't like it. It's an easy watch.
I don't mind it at all, actually. I think it's getting offensive. Yeah. Well, it is a bit offensive, actually, in some bits. When top's off and things like that. I quite like Gordon Ramsay.
Do you really? See, I didn't think you'd like him.
Yeah, I quite like the angriness. I quite like an angry man. Like my favourite comedians are likes of Jack D and Larry David. I love Curb Your Enthusiasm. Angry, ranting men. Because it's just very similar to myself.
Yeah, it's funny, but people who don't know us, well, I might be completely wrong. People who don't know us probably think we're really nice people, me and you. We're a right pair of moaning bastards. So when we get in the car together.
Oh my goodness, the world is put to rights.
Put to rights.
I've got some more moaning to do today.
Oh God, I'm looking forward to it. What's grinding your gears?
I went back to the bank. Remember last time we recorded? I had to give it up because we were speaking to Johnny Ray. Which I have to say, I'm still enjoying, actually, Johnny. It was one of those, he's so understated and so, just talks calmly and everything. But says some great stuff, actually, when I went through it and edited it. It took a while to edit, so I do apologise again to anyone who waited a while for that. But hopefully we'll make up to it with this one, and hopefully they enjoyed the Johnny Ray one. So anyway, I went back to the bank. It took me 2 hours to get served, and I was in and out within 30 seconds. It was only to use a machine. As in... I went into the bank to use the ATM, effectively.
Right, yeah.
Which is rather frustrating when you...
Sounds like a waste of time,
waited round the corner. Well, I had to pay in a cheque. Which
here he is.
Sent by the insurance company, so, yeah.
Billy Big Balls.
So that was my... morning ranks. It was cold. I'm used to boiling hot weather here, but it's been cold. So I was stood outside for 2 hours, and I just thought that I don't understand. They're trying to stop concentrations of people, but there were 100 people waiting in the queue.
Yeah, but you were 2 meters apart though.
Yeah, I know, but everyone in the queue's frustrated as well.
Yeah, because I know what you're like. How grumpy do you get if someone's really close to you, like stood behind you?
I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be happy. Yeah, I'm not good. I'm not good.
Would you say something?
No, of course I wouldn't. I'm British.
I'm British. I'll stand there.
I'll stand here and seethe internally and really grind my teeth together. Yeah, but I wouldn't say anything. What do you think I am? Mad? I think I'm American.
Italian.
Italian.
Hey, they'd be shaking their hands, wouldn't they? Hey,
yeah.
Whatever. Cazzo fire, whatever that means.
Yeah.
JT, it is a different Skype name. It's got a capital T at the start.
Ah, right. Okay.
Same name. Yeah. He said try that. That might work. He just texted me whilst you were talking. Then that's why it sounded vague.
Yeah. So, not because it was quite a vague story anyway. So I don't blame you for zoning out. I actually almost zoned out myself.
Yeah. Poor Kate. Like your missus.
Yeah.
God almighty, she must have to wear earplugs at times. How are you, just quickly, before we speak to our guest today, James Toseland, how are you getting on with your home drinking? How's it been going well?
I'm not doing much, mate. I've nearly lost a stone now, so that's all from not drinking.
Really?
I think most of that weight loss, though, came from cutting my hair. I self-administered. I've got such a mullet. So I managed to do the sides. But obviously I can't do the back. Kate started to do the back, but I'm a control freak. And she's obviously quite nervous about messing my hair up as well. And I could just tell. You know when you can tell? I don't know if you ever had...
Hang on a minute. Hang on. This is the bit I'm confused. You've cut the front...
No, I haven't cut the front.
Kate she was going to cut the back.
The bit that was helpful, really helpful.
Hang on. You don't need to be messy at the back. Do you realise you have no hair at the back? You do need to know. Someone needs to tell you.
That's the top.
It's sort of fallen out.
No, so I've not touched the top or the sunroof. Just the side, so it looked tidy, right? Because I've got a bit of a bird's nest. Anyway, so she's doing the back, but I could just tell that she was being tentative. And in the end, I got aggro. This was before we were going on air on Sunday. So if anyone noticed on Sunday that it's sort of quite long, it'd look awful from the sides or back anyway. But as it is, I've made sure I sat square front on. So
right,
yeah,
job's a good one.
Job is a good one. And we enjoyed our chat, didn't we, with Carmelo on Greatest Race. If anyone hasn't seen it, honestly, you have to go and watch it if you're a MotoGP fan. Actually, if you're a Superbike fan as well, which you probably are if you've heard Johnny Ray and you're about to listen to James Toseland, you probably like all of it. And interesting what he said about getting racing back going, basically saying towards the end of July, that's where they're aiming for. Now, Neil, you've been of the opinion that we're not going to get any racing this year. Did Carmelo change your opinion of that?
Yes. You know me, I'm fickle anyway. I've got a strong opinion, but I'm prepared to change it. So I don't think it's going to be the end of July, like he's saying.
No, I don't either. But
I think what definitely came across was, yes, we know behind the scenes they're going to do everything they can, but I asked the question of how many rounds it would take to be classed as a world championship. And he said, look, when the championship started, there were 5 rounds back in 1940 or whatever it
49,
was.
yeah.
So, 49. So, look, ideally, we don't want a 5-round championship. He didn't say it in so many words, but he sort of did.
And do you know what?
If necessary, they'll do 5 rounds.
Do you know what? Back in those days as well, Neil, they'd have 5 or 6 rounds in the early championships, and you could lose a result. So you'd have 6 rounds in the early championships, and 4 would count.
All right, yeah, throw away your worst.
You throw away your worst couple. I'm not saying they would do that at all. They definitely wouldn't, in fact, where it was decided that everyone should compete in every event. I think it's because there were certain events that some people couldn't get to, so on and so forth. So you just took your best 4, because
Yeah.
But
it was positive, and basically he was saying that if we have to do races on consecutive weekends at the same track, they will do that. They'll do whatever it takes.
But they wouldn't do double headers at the same track on the same weekend, would they? Which is what I understood from that.
I didn't. It wasn't asked directly. We didn't get a chance to run out of time. So I don't know. I still think they would.
Anyway, as far as I'm concerned, I thought it was positive. It's
positive.
It's hard to. It's hard. We all know what's going on in the world, and everything that's going on with this is not a positive, right? But it's from our point of view, we're talking purely about the sport side of things, and something that isn't a priority at this moment. But there are a lot of people. He was talking about 1,300 people, essential workers being in a paddock. They're people generally whose livelihoods do rely on the sport. So for a certain amount of people, it is key. And for a lot of people, it's entertainment as well. So, that's why it is crucial that this thing it's our job, isn't it, to ask these questions anyway. But I have to say, while you take the government to task and all these in wherever you are in the world, you try and ask the questions to Dorna. And to be fair to them, they've answered quite a lot of those tricky questions.
Yeah. There were no. Put it this way, it didn't skirt around any of the questions.
No,
it didn't try and deflect any answers, did it? Yeah, exactly. It was straight to the point. And actually, we came off the call to him, and we're all. Well, I was much more positive. I like I said, I've been saying,
that's his job as well, isn't it? At the head of the sport.
Yeah, but his English, his English is not. His English is not great, is it?
No,
and he still came across very well, didn't he? So.
Anyway, I think if you haven't seen that, if you don't watch BT Sport, or you haven't got it, or you've paused it and you haven't, while we're on lockdown, you can still go and see that on the Twitter. I think it's on the Twitter handle BT Sport MotoGP, and I think it's on their website as well. And I think MotoGP.com have put it up there anyway. Right, let's talk about our guest today, Neil, and someone we're both very, very familiar with, someone we both know very well indeed, and that is the two-time World Superbike Champion, James Toseland, all-round super talented machine of an individual, and someone we've worked with closely at BT too.
Yeah, obviously worked with him at BT for 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. Well, 6, was it? 5. Was it 5 or 6?
Oh God! I mean,
5 or 6. Anyway, also we were teammates. We were teammates for 2 years, and when you're teammates with someone, especially our relationship, we got on really well as teammates. James was a young kid in the team, not a lot of experience. I was the older guy, really. So
it
wasn't like he was out. He was a threat. You know what I mean? He was a young kid going to learn off the old guy.
What's the difference in you? Is it 9 years something? 8 years difference?
Probably. I'm 46, and I think so it's about 8 years.
Yeah.
I think he's about 38, isn't he?
Yeah, something like that.
38, 39. What I like, though, what you said about him, what sums James up, and we've said this before, we've said it in commentary and stuff, but I want to explain what it means. JT is a machine. I don't know anyone like him. Like, if I was to choose someone to fight for me or compete for me or do anything for me, if you wanted someone to put 100% into it, that would be amazing. James is the man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been retired now for quite a lot of years. He had to retire early because of breaking his wrist really badly. He's got a fused wrist now. We'll have to ask him about that.
Yeah, because that's been still going on, hasn't it, now?
Yeah, he's been having operations recently on it. But he still trains, he still works out, he looks amazing, as in, he looks like an athlete. I mean, yeah, he's only 38 years old, but anything he puts his mind to is, like I'll say this before we talk to him. When we were teammates, I looked at him and thought, he's all right. He's not great. But what JT had was this ability to continue to improve and this will to win that, honestly, Gav, I've had a lot of teammates, I've been around a lot of successful people. I've not seen a will to win like JT's because, like I'm saying, he had a lot of natural talent, but he wasn't great. But he became great. 2 times world champion, went into MotoGP on fire, qualified on that front row of the grid, almost got pole position in his first ever MotoGP race. I mean, he was right there with the fastest riders in the world, and that came down to that dogged determination. Really, he is a unique individual.
He's a grafter. He really is someone who's grafted and gets every ounce of talent out of himself. And whether that be on the bike or off the bike, which we've seen, I've seen it firsthand in the work that we've done together on TV, but also in terms of his music. The amount of effort he has put into keeping his career going or getting it going, those kinds of things is unbelievable.
I spoke to him yesterday just briefly, just asking him if he'd do the podcast, and it made me smile. He went, I've been learning to play the guitar during lockdown, know. And he's like, what have you been up to? And I'm like, it's been getting leathered.
Drinking.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, if anything, me and JT, it's just like we're so opposites. He's been like self-improving by doing something, learning a skill, and I've been getting on it, basically, Love him.
I've heard the disappointment. Right, let's speak to JT.
Hello.
Now then, is that Mr. Toseland?
It is. It is. Are we all? Can everybody hear everybody?
I can hear you. What about Neil? Oh, I don't believe it. How have I managed to do that? Oh, do you know what? I think I've called you.
He's getting on a bit, Gav. You need to speak up, I think.
Right. Do you know what? Actually, do you know what I've done? I think I've called you on a separate one. I think I've called you on a separate line, and now I'm trying to add Neil into it.
Hello.
There we are. Are we all together?
Hey, there he is.
I'm having such a bad day.
Hey, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. We don't. You've got me confused now. Am I the guest?
No, you're the guest now.
Yeah. I hate to say it.
Hang on a minute. So I can talk about myself even more.
This is a bit like Ducati in 2003 to 2004, where you say you're going to MotoGP. We're actually just replacing you with the younger model on Gas It Out, and it's just from now on.
Ouch.
Hey.
Is at that level, is it?
Hey, JT, we went there a bit early, didn't we? There's no need for that.
It cost me a fortune to pay Neil out of his job.
Bloody hell. We soon got to the nitty-gritty questions.
Sorry
how are you,
about
boys?
that. Anyway.
Right?
I'm all good, and just trying to work out. I mean, I am absolutely useless at this technical side, but not as useless as Neil, which is one thing, because we haven't been able to share audio over the last few ones. So how are you anyway?
Yeah, I'm good actually. Just I was just kind of settling into this old isolation thing, and I was thinking, like, everybody's used to like that 2 or 3 week holiday, aren't they? And you can kind of settle in, but I knew this next 2 or 3 weeks was going to be really odd, and it is. I know we've got to keep the banter up and all the rest of it, but when you start losing nearly 1,000 people a day through this awful virus, it's an incredible scenario that we find ourselves in. And if anybody's been affected by it, obviously I send my best wishes to it. I'm fortunate, really, here up in Sheffield that my family and friends have been able to stay away from it. A couple of acquaintances have had it actually, and passed away, unfortunately, from it. So I'm not that distant from what it's capable of. But it's just incredible, unprecedented times, isn't it? And obviously on the racing front, everything's had to stop. So we're all trying to find ways of keeping in touch like this and having a chat and keeping people's kind of spirits up. And I just hope that, and I know that this blog that you're doing, guys, has been massively popular around the motorcycle fraternity. So it's nice to be onto it, and hopefully we can give a bit of joy to people.
Oh, well, that's nice to hear, JT. And you know what? The thing was, we wanted to actually get all of our people we know well early on, but then we thought that's not fair, because it's just we might as well have these calls elsewhere. So we thought we'd stagger out. So we spoke to Susie a couple of weeks ago, and we thought we'd speak to you as soon as possible as well. So you're up at your mum's house, are you?
Yeah, I got stuck up here a bit, really, because I was doing some work here with my brother, because me and my brother's got a bit of a business together with property development and everything. So,
yeah.
And then I was thinking, to be away from family, I might as well kind of like stick myself with the family and friends kind of close, rather than being away from it. So it was a bit of a decision I made, and it was the right one, actually. It's nice to be close to people as much as you possibly can in these times, because obviously, some people don't have anybody in stuck in an apartment with maybe a couple of kids and all the rest of it. So I feel quite fortunate with the scenario that I'm in up here in Sheffield.
Hey, he's not stupid, is he, Gav? No. Home cooked food. I know what JT's like. He's not daft. I said he's not stupid, didn't I? Home cooked food. Good lad.
I saw this coming, Neil. I thought, hang on a minute. I need to be in the best place possible.
Where am I going to get the best food, and it's going to be free? I'm going to my mum's. Yeah, question for you, James.
Sorry, go on. Yeah, go on.
I'm intrigued. I knew you got this business with your brother. You've had it for a while, haven't you? Property development. Are you hands-on? I need to know. I want to see JT on the tools.
I have been for the last couple of years. It's been really, really nice. Because me and my brother are really, really close, like you are with yours, Neil. And I think it was about 9 years ago now. Basically, what happened when Neil Hodgson went to MotoGP, I was able to do quite well then. Once he was out of the way, because he was spoiling.
Competition had gone.
Wait a second, that's the story he tells, JT.
Yeah, I know. So I'm just backing him up on it. And then I was able to earn a few quid, a bit of extra, you see, with him out of the way. And every time I earned a few quid, my brother was he got the skills, you see. I just got the brawn. So I gave it him, and we bought some property together. And because he's a joiner by trade, and he learnt that at college. But he's like a jack of all trades now. He kind of renovates everything, and that's his kind of business. But when I first started out in motorcycle racing, he worked for the council, And, he was kind of coming, like getting a phone call on call at 3 o'clock in the morning, having to board windows up because people put windows through, coming in a bit drunk or whatever, the rest of it. And changing doors and locks. And it was pretty gruesome job. And there's even worse stuff than that, but I don't want to get into that. But so, when my job was going really well, I said, well, why don't you leave the council and I'll buy a property. We'll do it up together and we'll sell it. And you have that as your job. And basically, I just wanted to get him out of the council, to be honest. And it developed from there. And then we kind of built a bit of a portfolio for property. Like I say, once Neil moved on, I was able to earn some proper money. And then we started, we actually got an estate agent in Chesterfield called Toseland Properties. And basically what happened was we had an idea where we looked after rentals and then we went into sales and stuff like that. But that's where it started. It was me wanting to get my brother out of working for the council when things were going a bit better, and then we worked together closely, and then we had an idea of looking after other properties for other people with the estate agents itself. So, but that's all it is now.
Hang on a minute. How come I didn't know this about you? I didn't know it was JT, estate agent owner. This is a revelation here, JT.
It's not. That's why. It's my brother's.
The thing is, I'm just
picturing you, though. I'm just picturing you there.
I want to know. I want to see you on Homes Under the Hammer. I can just imagine you taking over from Dion Dublin next.
Honestly, though, I mean, when it comes to fulfilling jobs, renovating your property, you can never lose. If something needs a lick of paint or you want to do it up, and it always is really, really fulfilling. Like, if you really put the graft in. I've just renovated our place in London for 3 years. It took us 3 years.
And it's incredible.
We stripped the whole thing out. We stripped the whole thing out. New electrics, new plumbing, new everything. It was just like the outer shell that was left, and we did the whole thing. So. And it is beautiful. And it's amazing how rubbish something can look when you have to get right down to the bare bones of it. And if you really put some time in, incredible, you can make a space for your home. And I love that. And my brother's got a passion for it. But the nice thing is my brother's got the skills to do it. So, obviously, you get a bit of mates rates as well, don't you?
I should hope so too. I remember seeing every time you'd come to a different race and you'd be like, oh, we've done this week and it looks absolutely superb. And what we were saying before you came on, James, was that there's one thing about you is you're not shy of a bit of hard work, are you? You're not shy to get stuck in and get dirty, and also to work all hours God sends to make the most of everything. And do you feel that was relevant racing?
Yeah, I love it. I think I've got something going on. I've always been a bit different. I watched the Tyson Fury documentary, behind the scenes thing, and that kind of like bipolar thing or something, and all these kind of like personality traits that we're getting some kind of science behind them now, aren't we? And I've always had a bit of something going on, and I've always got to have something like to get me hands dirty with and get stuck into and keep me some. I definitely need something to wake up to in the morning. And can you imagine like motorcycle racing, where motorcycle racing, what it was as a sportsman, was absolutely perfect because, and in fact, Neil was a big influence on increasing that level of that focus. Is noticing Neil's fitness levels when I first became his teammate. We went out for jogging in South Africa, and he absolutely made me look like I was smoking 40 fags a day and on the beers every night, and he shot off, and I was pretty fit then. I thought I wasn't, and then I realised as a sportsman, it's perfect for that because it's 24/7. You've got to watch what you eat, you've got to watch what you sleep, you've got to watch how you train, and then to fly around at 200 miles an hour every weekend as like the buzz of it all, like the cherry on the cake. For my personality, it was absolutely spot on. And like when I had to retire with the injury, the biggest problem I had in my life was waking up without something to really get my teeth into. And it wasn't really missing riding so much. It wasn't the riding because I've not ridden a motorcycle since. So it's not riding a motorcycle. It's that focus and
the competition, really. Competition and that purpose, that self-worth.
Purpose, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's in life. That's exactly what it is now.
Yeah, Neil, and what about you when you first remember JT coming through as a youngster and then obviously becoming your teammate?
Yeah, well, do you know what? It's funny because James just absolutely burst onto the scene from nowhere, from this, you'd never heard of this kid, to him. I remember James winning the CB 500 championship. And then all of a sudden he was doing British Supersport and he was beating people like Jim Moody and lads that were animals quick. And James was like, I think you're about 16 at the time, maybe 16, 17. And then all of a sudden he got signed up. And before I knew it, he was in the same paddock as me in the factory Honda World Supersport team. And it was bizarre because I was looking at this young boy. And James, obviously, you were 17, 18 years old. He seemed so young, but like with all this bizarre natural talent, but also this, again, like I talked about it before we got you on the line, James, this sort of single-minded, professional, like he was so professional, Gav. But can you imagine him, like James now? He was just a machine then, even at 16, 17, he knew what he wanted, and he was going to get it, whatever it took.
James, when you we talked to Neil and we've spoken to lots of people, as you'll have seen over so far in this podcast, and whether it was Johnny Ray, whose father was a road racer, and John McGuinness, who did motocross, and Neil himself, motocross back in the day. Your path into bikes was a bit different, wasn't it? It was a bit of a... I don't know, how was it that you became a motorcycle racer? Because it's not a motorcycle family that you came from, was it?
No, not at all. It's a difficult story to tell. You know it, Gavin, and Neil knows it. It's my mum and dad they broke up when I was 3. They divorced when I was 3-4 years old, and we had to move in with my grandparents. My mum had 2 boys. I've got an older brother, so we moved in with grandparents, and that's why I play the piano, because my grand played the piano, and that's when I learnt in those early days from kind of being 4, 5, 6 to 8. And my mum met a new boyfriend when I was 8, and this new boyfriend, he had a RGB 250, 2-stroke Suzuki, was beautiful, and he could play a bit of rock and roll piano. So, cut a bit of a long story short, he instantly was of interest for me, because he played rock and roll piano, which I'd not heard before, because I was classically trained, so I was doing all these classical pieces, which I didn't particularly enjoy doing. And all of a sudden I got introduced to rock and roll playing, and that's why the rock influence kind of crept in, and they got together, and I was fascinated with the bike. He used to take me out on this RGV, and I used to kind of imitate, get my knee down on the back of the pillion, and just that. And he had a few friends that went out on weekends, and I absolutely loved it. It was the breeze and the exposure and the speed, and I really discovered that what I had kind of bubbling up inside of me was piano playing and music didn't kind of scratch that itch, and this really did. And I asked him for a bike, and he bought me a second-hand TY80 trials bike, Yamaha, which I think most kids had back in the late 80s, 90s, and as soon as I jumped on it, I don't know, when something's so fun, you can't put it down. I mean, and that's what I was really fortunate about in life. Really, I was introduced to 2 things that I absolutely adored, and I couldn't put down, and that's where it started from. And he took me to trials riding for 4 years, and I got to kind of like, I was junior East Midland champion and stuff like that. So I knew I was pretty good at it, which then added to the enjoyment, because if you're competitive, if you're not very good at it, you don't do it.
No.
And you quit, because you've got to be so competitive that you have to be good at it as well. And then I went to motocross because I fancied a bit of speed, but I was pretty short as a young teenager. I couldn't put my foot down, and my ambitions really outweighed my talent, and I was spanning myself quite often, and it took the enjoyment a little bit out of it. And so we were watching road racing, and we realised you didn't need the height for road racing. So we said, we'll try that then. And honestly, I went to Three Sisters in Wigan and ran a go-kart track and this Kajiva 80. And we went round, and literally, I just found my thing.
Yeah.
I didn't get my knee down for quite some time, but that's the ultimate thing. But just riding round, and it wasn't dirty. You didn't have to clean your bike as well as, jet wash it off when you got back and all the rest of the with motocross. And my mum didn't have to marshal, so she was happy, because in motocross back in those days, your parents came and they had to bloody marshal and everything. So she absolutely hated that. So she was happy. So the whole little team was a bit happy. But behind the scenes, unfortunately, there was a very, very difficult and violent relationship between him, this Ken, and my mum, and it was really, really bad. I mean, over the 8-year relationship, my mum was hospitalised, and I'm not going into the details again, but it was really difficult. And I was living in a house that was with that environment, as if you've been a kid where parents are really, really abusive to each other. And it's a confusing environment to live with, especially like those teenage years. And unfortunately, he took his life when I was 16 years old, and I'd only just started road racing when I was 15, so I've only been doing it for a year. But luckily, my first year I won the junior road racing championship in my very first year. And you got Steve Brogan, you got James Ellison in that year in 1995.
Yeah.
So it was a good little year for talent coming through. And I do know, that what you're talking about there with this determination and the first, him doing that was really confusing for me, and it was really hurtful. And I lost my grandfather within 6 months, and he was my father figure as well. And it literally just lit a bonfire inside of me. And all of a sudden, motorcycle racing wasn't just fun riding around tracks; it was my therapy. And I really needed it to keep me balanced. And I, all throughout my career, I used it as my ammunition, and that was my absolute drive and goal all through all of my career with it. And again, when I had to retire 9 years ago, again I had to sort that out, because I had to find the box to put that in, because there was no need for it anymore. But I'd still kept it so lit all the way through, and it was still very prominent in my thoughts and mind. And without being able to jump on a motorcycle, it's been very, very difficult these 10 years. But I'm talking in such an open way now about it all, and it has been difficult these last 10 years. But I'm talking about it now because I'm in a place where I'm making sense of it, and I'm able to put things in it. That's basically why who I was.
Which is great that you can talk about it, and it is. I'm sure people will find that refreshing as well, and I'm sure it helps other people definitely who are in similar sort of situations. And obviously, you use that determination. You talk about lighting a bonfire. Well, we know what you went and did. We know you went and won World Superbikes. And do you feel when you went and won those championships? I don't want to be glib and gloss over everything, but let's focus on the championships. We know the hard work that got there, but do you feel that both those times that you won, it was sort of against the odds? You weren't necessarily the one people had been expecting to win, whether in your team or in the championship, whether it be with Laconi or riding against the likes of Bayliss or whoever, that you weren't necessarily, or Hargo, whoever, you weren't necessarily the favoured one. Does that make sense?
I wasn't, because I was very much learning on my feet. I was 20 years old when I got the opportunity to be Neil's teammate for my first year in World Superbikes. And I think you have to remember that a 20-year-old on a superbike back then was pretty unusual. You've seen these kids like Quartararo these days, 20 years old, just turned 21 in MotoGP, but you're starting at 14 now in Moto3, in Moto2. It's moved backwards 5 years, more or less. And the experience that you've got with that extra time allows you to do that. But it was unusual. And I wasn't really that prepared. In fact, I know I wasn't prepared. And all of a sudden, I've got to get my fishing rod out. And Neil was a certain pace, right at the front. And then Colin Edwards and Troy Bayliss were absolutely blistering, because me and Neil were on Dunlops at the time, and it was a bit more difficult because the Michelins had a bit of an advantage. And sometimes the pace of those Michelins in like Assen and stuff like that, as a 20-year-old, I remember going, right, okay, I can sort of figure out how to get as fast as Neil, because he was on the same bike and he was on the same tyres, and he was always about, I don't know, probably probably 3, 4, 5 tenths quicker. And as a 20-year-old, I could kind of figure that one out. But, when you got Bayliss and Edwards going 1.2, 1.5 seconds quicker sometimes, I didn't realise back then as a youngster that the advantage of different tyres and different bikes made such a difference. I just thought that it must be me. I'm not quick enough. So, and then also in 2003 when I won the championship against Regis Lacconi. I mean, Regis Lacconi was a Grand Prix winner in Valencia. He was a fantastic, and he was much faster than me at most events in 2004. But I was consistent, and with the consistency, it kept me in touch with the championship. And by the time the last 2 rounds came, I unfortunately for Regis, I kind of figured it out just at those last 3 rounds. And it literally was as simple as that. I was only 23 years old, and it took me 3 years to learn how to get as fast as the quickest superbike riders in the world, which it's good going. But to be honest, I mean, GSC Racing and Agent Plant with Neil, they were so patient with me, because in the first year I finished 13th. In the second year I finished 7th. To be honest, you're lucky to keep your job.
Yeah, nowadays
finishing in those positions.
Yeah,
big time. So it was 13th, 7th, and then in the third year of that, I finished 3rd. And then obviously with Ruben Zaus and Neil going, who were 1st and 2nd in 2003, I got promoted. But I was very, very fortunate with the age, and I was just quick enough when I was learning to keep my job, to keep my skill levels in a place where they could adapt and get good enough to beat those guys. But I can tell you, a 20-year-old watching Bayliss and Edwards and Neil and all that flying around and nearly a second quicker, there were some days where I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this good, but luckily my determination pushed me through it. And the support from all my team, the engineers and all the teams, it was a collective effort of helping me for sure.
Do you know what was really interesting? By the way, real powerful words there, James, especially speaking about, what happened through your childhood. Bloody hell, really powerful. Thanks for being so open and honest, because I know a lot of people wouldn't be. Just to pick up on you when you were 20 years old, one of the standout things, Gav, with James was, we'd finish the session, I'd be 3rd or 4th, James would be, at the time, in his first year, learning it all, he'd be 15th. I'd go, you all right? I'd walk over to his side of the garage, you all right? And he'd go, yeah, sound, mate, sound. I'd go, all right, what's up? Like, obviously you're having a bad day. What's wrong? Like, talk to me. No, sound, it's right. I'm fine. He had this, he never, like, where I was the opposite, right? If I was having a bad day, I'd be going, it's effing shit, this, that, and the other. But I was bad on myself, because then I'd beat myself up. I'd then go to my motorhome. I'd have self-doubt, too much self-doubt. I'd talk myself out of it. Where James he just never, and I don't know what was going on inwardly. He might, you can answer this, James. He might have been going, I can't do this. But you always appeared to me like you just had this weird, excuse that word, me from using that word, inner belief that, no, I'll figure it out. I'll definitely figure it out and I'll get there. And I never saw you break, even through the really tough times in that first year.
I think I'm thinking, again, on my feet a little bit, but when I lost Ken, there was no other tutor. There was only Ken that came into my life that introduced me to motorcycling, and nobody else in my family or my friends knew anything about motorcycling. Obviously with your relationship with your dad, Neil, and like Leon Haslam with his dad and things like that, they've always got some kind of confidence through the racing, where they could, a bit of a soundbite that they can bounce off. But I literally had nobody. I mean, when Ken passed away or committed suicide, basically Honda came to my mum's house and said, I know that nobody can take him, so we're going to sign him and go to World Supersport in Castrol Honda, and we're going to give him somebody in the team to look after him, basically, and do the things that a father figure would at 16, 17 years old. But going into a big team like Castrol Honda, when I did move, and I will be forever grateful for Honda for seeing the potential, knowing what happened, because they found out through various means, and they realised that I had nobody to take me at all, and racing would have definitely finished. Even with the potential there, it would have finished because I had nobody to take us. I quickly then, for the next kind of 10 years, I had to figure things out myself, and that's why I got so intense as a personality, I think, because I realised I had to watch everything. And that's why I'll always be fantastic friends with you, Neil, because you were gracious enough to just come over and ask things like that. And even though I didn't really have a conversation about or have anything to say about it, because I had to figure it out myself, because that was just the zone. And now I really, you know what it's like when you do something well, you try and remember it to stay and do that thing again. And when you become even more of a successful sportsman, that just gets more and more acute every time you do something a bit better. You remember it. You've got to do the same thing. I don't know if you found that, Neil, but it's and by the time I was your teammate, I'd figured out that I needed to figure out everything myself and just watch everything. And that's why those 3 years were so pivotal for me, because I had 3 years of consistency of watching every aspect. You know, you as a much faster teammate, but then listening to your feedback to the engineer, and then what that gave
the engineer. Got out. It's shit.
But that all came. And you knew this, but that all came then over to my side because I was the second rider, and then all that then was like, well, Neil's got this, we're going to try this one, so we'll try that with you and see if it helps. And it all did help. And it's you've got to figure out what works for you, and that zone that I went into, it did have its negatives at times, of course. You know, I don't think anybody's approach to themselves about trying to be the best in the world is flawless, and I was just trying to make the best of what I had, of what I kind of learned from my younger age, and it was difficult. I tell you what, the two championships were difficult because the one I know you struggled when you actually became world champion. I mean, I might ask you a question in a second, but when I crossed the line as a world champion in 2003 in Magny-Cours, I had a really, 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 really tough couple of weeks, because when I crossed the line and I looked down, I realised that the people were there that started it, that actually were right behind, determined for me to achieve that goal, weren't there. And then all of a sudden it was like, what's this for? And then all of that started creeping in. What's and then I realised just how much anxiety and frustration and anger for what decision that Ken made back then, and all of that fueled me to the person I am to achieve stuff. I then achieved the ultimate goal from what we started, that he wasn't there to see. And then it was difficult for me then, because I was like, what's the point? Because I can admit, living with all that, it's not the most productive and not the most positive psychological approach to life. But while I had racing still, it balanced it, and that's why I played the piano, because that calmed me down, because I've got good memories. So, but winning everything as well brings a whole new, different emotions on as well. I talked to you, Neil, didn't I? When you crossed the line, you found it a bit of a difficult emotion. But just on a personal note, that was something that I also had to get my head around, because then obviously you've got to figure out why you do it, and you need to do it again. And I tell you what, I won in 2004. I finished fourth in 2005. I had a big crash testing electronics and that, but still, I finished fourth because I was still trying to figure out why I was actually wanting to win motorcycle races, and how much of the bonfire I wanted to keep going for my own mental health. So it was a difficult balance to
bloody. I tell you what, intense, mate. Bloody intense. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
A lot for still a relatively young lad, and then you're coping with fame and fortune. You know what I mean? All joking apart, but you've that all going on. A lot of people in your position would have potentially gone really off the rails as a young kid, And thankfully, you found biking, and went in the right direction. Bloody hell, it's intense stuff, mate. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, motorcycle racing was perfect for it, and then, everybody's got a story, haven't they? Everybody's got their thing going on, and
Gavas, they're all boring.
Everybody's got their losses. Everybody's got their losses, haven't they? And everybody's got things to deal with and battle with. Motorcycle racing was an unbelievable therapy for it, but what actually happened was I used it. And that's why I was the person I was. That's basically why you're talking about the character. That's why I was.
That's why.
I was.
Yeah, but
do you know what? Sorry, Gav. I knew the stories that you've just said, but I didn't understand. I've never. It's like I've seen all the pieces of the jigsaw, but I've never put them together. You've explained it now. I get it. I get it now. It's, you know what I mean. I've always thought you are a machine. Is this driven? But I didn't really. I don't know. It didn't all fit together. Now it does. So thanks for explaining that to me.
I bet there was.
Am I not as weird as you thought then? Now.
Oh no, you still are.
But I've got an excuse for it.
Got a bloody good excuse. Hey, listen, James. On a lighter note, how lucky were we? So we rode for this team. The team was the GSE team, Brownwork Southeast. It was owned by a gentleman called Daryl Healy. A great guy, ran this fantastic team, and he employed a team manager, the best team manager I worked with, a gentleman called Colin Wright. And Colin Wright helped me become the person I became in racing. He really helped me with my riding, with my confidence, and he played a huge part in me becoming a world champion. And I know he played a huge part in yours, James. What about some of the bloody stories, though? Because Colin was eccentric, wasn't he, James?
You know, I can't talk about most of the stories. But I tell you, I never had so much fun racing motorcycles around this amazing planet than I had with the 2 years with you. I mean, it's. You don't usually get. I think because of the distance we were like as being competitive, you were always top boy and you were away, and I was learning. I was getting a bit quicker, but I was never really a threat for your position or your job, and I was young enough to be absolutely fine, and I just soaked it all up. But and that's why, because we were friends, because of that, because. I realised when I was with Regis Latoni in 2004, we were battling for the championship right to the end, and it was both of us. It was our world and like our ultimate goal. It was a bit the friendship was a bit more fractious, I can tell you.
Yeah.
But because of the vibe of us two, it just spread through the whole team. So my engineers and all the rest of it, they were. I can't even remember who mine were and yours were, if you know what I mean. You know?
Yeah, because the team worked as a team, didn't it? Yeah, all together.
Big time. And Colin was very good at guiding the ship that way and getting that vibe that everybody's an equal. He led with an iron fist, and I know it wound a few people up along the way, but the preparation and the consistency that he brought to a satellite team and the results that we got because of that. And by the time he got it how he wanted it, then he was able to relax the fun parts. And oh god, we had some fun.
What was the story about your dress code, or what
Oh my god, it was horrendous. So picture the scene, right? So I've been in World Superbikes for 3 years. It didn't go according to plan, so I ended up going back to BSB. I had my 2 years at BSB, won the championship, and then in 2001, me and James Toseland are going to be teammates, and we're going to World Championships. We're going to do a full, at least 1 or 2 years of World Superbikes. We're well excited. Both me and James, we can't believe it. We're on good equipment. We've got good people around us. We've got the best team manager. Apart from Colin is also crazy, right, the team manager. So Colin says, right, he's a proper like Cockney accent. He's like, right, you fuckers, right, what we're going to do.
Just you have to start first. Can't do the accent.
Yeah, I can't do the accent. Right, you fuckers.
I didn't know from Leeds.
Yeah. Hey, listen, next year, we ain't fucking about. We're going there to do the business. We're going to be professional. We're going to show the world. In fact, we are going to be like a professional football team. We're all going to have immaculate suits. We'll travel in them. We'll turn up at the tracks. Already, whilst he's saying this, I'm thinking, oh, shit, no, please, no. James is like, don't know what to say. So,
well, I'm only just out in the school uniform, so it's no different to me.
Literally, fast forward the first round, we turn up. Now, can you imagine? No team travels in suits. It's just not done. You look like absolute idiots. You need to travel in something comfortable, like a tracksuit. You know, don't travel in suits.
Can I just say before you go on? Before you go on, it sounded a pretty good idea on paper, but unfortunately, the choice of attire was also down to Colin. This is the problem.
Yeah, and Colin. By the way, Colin's wife Leslie's lovely, but apart from Leslie, Colin's got no taste at all, so he's got no style. So we have these tweed jackets, Gav, and we're travelling to Phillip Island. You know, just a 24-hour flight. Thank you very much. And we're like this. This is what it's like with Colin. Colin, can we take our jackets off? No, you fucking can't. Oh, okay, great. I'm sweating. But then, imagine how embarrassing this was. I'll never forget this one, James. We're in...
Frankie, go on, give it.
Oh, no, hang on, Frankie. You know Frankie Carcetti? Frankie Carcetti is Joan Mir's crew chief. Very intelligent guy, incredible crew chief. Well, he worked with GSE, with those guys, and he was only young at the time. Anyway, I think we were in America, and we'd just dropped a hire car off, and he was really clumsy, was Frankie. He was always doing stupid things. Anyway, he got a can of Coke in his hand and his mobile phone at the same time. His mobile phone rang. And bear in mind, it's in front of everybody, the whole team. And he goes to answer it and he pours this can of Coke all over his suit. It was just golden. But like right in front of Colin, and Colin writes like, you fucking idiot. Colin liked to swear, by the way. You know.
Yeah, you're not just adding that colour.
Just picture the scene, though. I know I'm going on about it, but the uniform was traumatizing, right? Picture the scene. I'll never forget. We're getting the bullet train in Japan to go to wherever, Sugo. And all the Honda team were there, like Colin Edwards and everyone, Slight. And they're all in the trackies, you know, and we turn
No, it's all the cool gas gear, isn't it? You remember, it was all gas, it was sponsored by gas, remember, Neil?
Yes, yeah, so they all look cool.
Yeah, all cool, well cool.
And we looked like we were going to an accountancy job, you know what I mean? And everyone took the piss out of us, and Colin's going, fucking ignore them. You know, you're just like, well, it's pretty embarrassing, isn't it? So, yeah. Oh, what a nightmare.
So who was it that said who's died?
Yeah, I can't remember. I thought we'd going to a funeral.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
This is no word of a lie, but my grandpa, right? After we were able to take them off, after the I can't remember how long it lasted for, but it was I think it was all year, but I offered the tweed jacket to my grandpa, and he went, "You're all right, James. I'm fine for the jacket."
That is how bad they were.
That is true. That is the absolute truth. Even my grandpa turned it down. I was like, "Oh, Jesus, I've been wearing this all year."
Oh my God.
He knocks it back. I love it. Absolutely love it. I remember. I'm trying to think of stories, times around, because I obviously met you properly in MotoGP, and I remember you coming over to Laguna Seca with the band when you were racing there as well, and the band were over. Do you remember? And they had the motorhome. Yeah. I remember we were going out for the Sunday night party.
The Red Bull party.
The Red Bull party, yeah. And we were in the motorhome driving to this party. Whoever was driving, I can't remember. Anyway, we were all... There's about 20 of us driving along to the party in the motorhome, and plates, because no one had closed all the cupboards, plates flying everywhere. I mean, it was a mess. Well, I don't know if you remember at that party, but Vern Troyer was there. Do you remember? Mini-Me from...
he fell out of his little chair, didn't he?
Yeah, we were waiting. I swear on my life,
it was horrendous.
It was one of the most horrendous but hilarious things. God rest his soul now. But back then, we were waiting in the queue to get into this place. We're in the VIP, and they were going to let us in. And James was all his band, and I was there, Matt Roberts, and Vern Troyer's on his. He had a little scooter that he used to get around. It was with Malcolm. Was it Malcolm McCassie? Was it
Malcolm McCassie? Yeah.
Yeah, he was there. And anyway, Vern was absolutely leathered. I mean, it didn't generally take much. Anyway, he's on this little scooter, and he fell out of it, of this mobility scooter, and landed plumb on his head. And we're stood in the queue, and it was like, oh my God, this is the most surreal night of my life. Going around.
You didn't know whether to go and help, did you? You didn't know whether to go and help.
Exactly.
You didn't know if he was going to get annoyed if you helped, or it was like, because everybody, like, like the Frankie Carcetti chucking Coca-Cola all over him in front of the team. This was exactly the same. Like the whole paddock. Just witnessed this crash in front of them.
Claret pissing out of his head. And it was just like, oh my God, this is the most bizarre. Am I drunk? I mean, we've only just come out here now. I've just been in a motorhome with 25 people with plates flying everywhere. And then suddenly Mini-Me's throwing himself out of a scooter onto his head. One of the most bizarre.
They were the days, Gav. They were the days. Where have them gone?
Well, they were. Hey, do you know what?
Going to the Red Bull party with a rock and roll band.
Oh, I tell you what, they were actually great days. Laguna Seca, it is a fantastic circuit, but also the place around it. It's just a good, fun place, in it, all Monterey and all in that neck of the woods. I do enjoy it. Do you know what? In that time, sorry, Neil, just in MotoGP at that time, that was when. You 2008, I'm sure it was the first year of MotoGP, you were having such a great time. And I always felt, and this is from the outside, this is from looking in, I always felt you never got a fair crack of the whip in MotoGP. And you just talked about it there when you said in World Superbike it took you 3 years to get up to level. And I always felt that Tech 3 at that time wasn't the level of where the satellite Yamaha is now. But your first year was unbelievable. You had that horrible crash at the start of the second year that I think put you on the back foot. Do you feel you didn't get a fair crack of the whip?
Oh, difficult to say, really, because the first year was better, literally, and I mean literally, because I had Michelin qualifying tyres.
Yeah. Because
me and Colin, unfortunately, it was the coming up to the end of an era with the 800cc era. And because it was coming up to the end of an era, they were developing the 1000cc's. So Hervé Poncharal, unfortunately, we literally had the slowest bikes on the grid. Through the speed traps, me and Colin's Yamaha were the slowest bikes on the grid. And the Michelin qualifying tyres were able, because we had enough power for one lap, because with the restriction with the fuel, you're able to increase the power to its maximum just for qualifying. And with that, and combined with the Michelin qualifier, you really didn't want to go around a track that much faster anyway with the power and grip kind of ratio. And that kind of, wherever you qualify in MotoGP, if you get a pretty good start, you know, everybody's talent is so similar, you can pretty much stay there. So why the second year was so much more difficult was we changed the Bridgestones as well. So that was an absolute disaster, really, for someone in their second year that needed to improve a little bit more. Well, it was impossible, more or less, for me to improve a bit more because the qualifying tyres were banned, and me and Colin had the slowest bike on the grid with the same grip. Well, and without that combination, we then qualified 10th instead of 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. And I finished 8th, and I had a few 6th places, but yeah, I mean, you know, I lost my job finishing 6th in MotoGP on the slowest bike on the grid, and unfortunately for me, just had that big accident. It was an American called Ben Spies winning his World Superbike Championship in his inaugural year, and an American compared to a UK rider with the business that does with selling motorcycles, etc., as far as the business goes. And unfortunately, Colin rode so well in 2009. It was the position was mine, unfortunately, but
sliding doors though again, isn't it? We talk about it a lot on this podcast already with the people we've spoken to. His timing is everything. We talk about it with Scott Redding and his opportunities here and there, and you get these moments where things and I don't know, Neil. To me, it just seems like the Brits have been unlucky actually in MotoGP over even when you were there 2004 that year. It wasn't the year to be on a satellite Ducati, and it's the story that keeps telling itself.
It is, but James said it earlier when he was saying something. Everyone's got their story.
Yeah,
they do.
Right,
if you sat down with Christopher Mullen, or if you sit down with Troy Bayliss, which we will do at some point. We'll speak to Troy and Chris, but everyone's got their. Yeah, this was a good year. That was a good year. Oh, this went really bad for me, and I shouldn't have done this. And in hindsight, we'd all probably do things a little bit different. Not to contradict myself, I do think James didn't quite get a fair crack at it, but, and I know James thinks this anyway. You look back at his career. James looks back at his career. I look back at James's career and go, bloody hell!
Oh yeah.
Hey, boy, did good. You know what I mean? Glass is so half full. We're all doing high fives, aren't we? We're not going, oh my God. You only, you know.
As a professional sportsman, you're going to have exactly the same kind of curvature as what we're seeing with this pandemic. You know, you come in from the bottom, and then you're going to have a peak, and then, you know, with age and with everything else that comes along, you're going to have the down curve. And unfortunately, every career has that in different kind of levels. And I was very, very fortunate that the peak got to become a double world champion in World Superbikes. If I'd have gone to MotoGP on one of the fastest bikes, with how confident and my skill level was in 2007 when I was world champion to 2008, I could hand on heart say I could have had a few podiums and possibly even better, which would then have snowballed onto everything else that brings from that point. I went to MotoGP on the slowest bike on the grid and did the best I could, and I think I had about, I don't know, a dozen, 6 places. So finishing the top 6 in MotoGP on the slowest bike is not bad going, but that they were the cards I was dealt at that point in time. And the biggest thing I think for myself is I can definitely look myself in the mirror and that I give it absolutely everything. And I think the biggest reward I had from everything in motorcycle racing is, I feel, even though people think I'm a little bit strange sometimes, is I walked away with respect. And I think if you can walk away with respect.
Well, that's it. You still are, and you always will be a double world superbike champion, and that said everything. And you know, that's beyond most people's wildest dreams. And when I say most, I mean 99.9% of people who even watch it, take part, anything. You know, only one person could be a world champion every single year, and to do it twice on different manufacturers as well, which is a rarity, is seriously impressive.
I was really pleased I won for Honda, because obviously it's winning again, which kind of like you know, it's everyone's great. But I was behind the scenes. Now you know a little bit about the backstory. I am so pleased and so proud that I was able to win for Honda because of when they picked me up when I was 16 years old.
They give you the chance, didn't they? Right? You know, they took the risk, didn't they?
They not only they took the risk, they actually became part of the family almost, because without Honda and Bob McMillan and Dave Hancock and everybody that took me to Castrol Honda, with obviously Mick Corrigan's amazing team in '97, I would have definitely had to stop riding motorcycles. And so, you know, to be the last Honda winner for World Superbikes still. And you know, and then obviously with the pride of becoming twice world champion, and still I'm the youngest world champion. Even with all the demons that it took for me to actually maybe achieve all that, I'm very, very, very thankful. And now having a chat like this with Neil, you know, we're talking 20 years ago now, and time moves on fast. And I'll always remember those 2 years really, really fondly, and the whole career really fondly, because it was just an incredible ride.
Yeah, hey, we had some fun. Let's before we cut it off, I want to quickly fast forward to our second career, which was TV. The first round with BT Sport was Qatar 2014.
Yeah.
Me and Gav, obviously Gav's a TV pro. Me and JT have not got a clue, and we were thrown in the deep end off the scale. Gav, explain what happened technically, because there was something wrong, wasn't there? Technically.
Basically, it was something to do with all the signals went awry. So that meant nobody could talk to anyone at any point. It was all. So that meant no one would be able to talk to a cameraman, no one could talk to the director, and so on and so forth. So the plan was to be set out in the paddock and talking, but you wouldn't have been able to do that. So we had to set up a studio, didn't you? An impromptu studio got built from one night to the next, didn't it? And it was like,
but
it was
James,
studio.
Yeah. But,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
But I was lucky because I was like, right, Neil, you're going to be doing reporting. You're in pit lane. Okay, with Gav. Okay, sound. I don't really know Gav too well, but, that'd be easy enough. Right, James, you're with Melanie Sykes and you're presenting this programme live for 8 hours a day for 2 days solid on this scaffolding with, it was chaos, wasn't it? I couldn't believe how hard it was. It was just...
Well, I mean, bless her, Mel. Lovely girl, but absolutely no experience about what motorcycling was and the history. And I remember I met up about 5 or 6 times, and I wrote out from even back like the 500 days of the history about motorcycle racing, MotoGP.
Brilliant.
To give her some kind of heads up to help. And it even caught me out because they took pictures of me and Mel in a cafe and insinuated that other things were going on. All I was telling her was when Mick Doohan won his 5 World Championship.
You got your motocross out. She's got motocross out. It's like, check out these two in the Daily Mail.
Because honestly, lads, it was a real chore taking Melanie Sykes out for coffee. You know what I mean? It was awful. But anyway, so we're on this bit of scaffolding, and I remember one. Sam Lowes had just become World Supersport Champion the year before, and he was coming to the year before, and he was coming to Moto2 the year after or something. Anyway, all of a sudden, Sam Lowes is coming up the steps of this scaffolding, and me and Mel are there. And in the year from the gallery that the production's telling you, okay, we've got Sam Lowes coming on now. We're going to have about 5 minutes with Sam. Nice little chat, James, and throw any questions in, Mel. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I know Sam's got a twin brother, and I know he's from Lincoln, but that's about it. I'm not sure how I'm going to string this out for 5 minutes, but we did. But Mel had no idea about anybody, so I was asking these questions, and when there's 2 of you, you kind of shut up a little bit for someone else to kind of come in. Well, I couldn't do that. And then everybody was giving me jip for saying, oh, you're not letting Mel in, you try and do it all yourself. I'm thinking, oh my God, you've got no idea.
my favourite
all this. Sorry, go on, Gav.
You finish that, Neil. I'm about to move on to another story. Go on.
Oh yeah, I was going to say all this, and it's the very first round that we're all live with no experience. Yeah. It was chaos.
Yeah, it was.
It was fun though. It was fun.
It was amazing.
We
laughed.
We spent a few bob on £10 pints by the end of the weekend. I remember that, and they were well deserved. Hey, I just remember when you mentioned that the gallery, which is obviously our producer and directors in our ears. The one I'll never forget, James.
Misano.
Misano with Paolo Nutini. Right, turns up. Who's dad and him are big bike fans. But obviously he's come on to our show at the end. And
this is making me cringe already.
No, but it was one of the funniest because it was just one of the best things ever. Because it was, and you get a warning from the guys in your ear, and they say 5 minutes. 5 minutes to stop talking. That means 5 minutes to the end of the programme. But James had taken that 5 minutes, 5 minutes to keep talking. And you and Paolo Nutini went through, he was brilliant, wasn't it? And afterwards, we've all looked at each other and you went, oh, right. Oh, well, we had 5 minutes of solid Paolo Nutini chat.
They're the exact words, by the way. Anybody listen? The exact words that you get in your ear is 5 minutes to stop talking. Well, if you're not in the loop of the jargon, and I heard that, and literally, I know Paolo Nutini a bit, I know a few of his songs and all the rest of it, but all I had to chew on was this email address for the charity for Marcus Micheli, bless him. So it was an important thing, but all I had was Paolo Nutini, a couple of songs, and this charity. Well, I must have said this charity email address in about 15 different ways. www. What is it, Paolo again? www. And I could see Susie because this is Susie at this point. This is not Mel. So I could see Susie literally falling out with me as the seconds went by, and I couldn't figure out why she's getting so annoyed at me. And then the daggers, by the time 4.5 minutes come, she actually elbowed me. She elbowed me.
TV gold, this was.
Yeah. I said, what's the problem? I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, someone said 5 minutes to stop talking.
It was hilarious.
When I told her at the end, because she really fell out of me too. She was really like, because she didn't have a chance to have a bit of a warm up to close the show. Because 5 minutes to stop talking, 30 seconds to go, well, it's been brilliant, blah, 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 blah. We'll see you again next time. Well, I didn't even give a chance to give any of that. He was like, anyway, Paolo, cheers. See ya.
and literally everybody was going, what happened then? What happened? And James
Why
is all
you
confused.
Stop talking, James?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Well, when I look back now and when I watched it, he's like, "Oh my god!" No wonder, like, shut up. What's he still talking for about this website?
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was gone.
Cringing.
Hey, listen, I've not asked the big questions.
Well, get them in then.
Yeah, James. With this podcast, we like to get to know the guests a little bit. We'll have a chat, small talk mainly, and then, as it gets near to the end, I ask the big, hard-hitting questions. These are the questions that you'll have been challenged throughout your career. You've done a bit of travelling. You've been interviewed from all sorts of people, but this is where it gets hardcore, right? So I ask. It's a quick fire round.
Let me sit down.
Yeah.
Let me sit down.
Right. It's quick fire, right? So you're a clean living type of guy, but what's your tipple? What's your drink? If you're I know as a Yorkshireman, you won't have been to a bar, but you won't walk to a bar first. But what's your drink?
Kettle Black.
You are?
What's my alcoholic drink, you mean, mate?
Yeah.
I'm a whiskey lover. I do enjoy a nice malt whiskey. No ice, no nothing. Just
hey, we had a few of them. We had a few of them on the way to Japan that time. God, we were a mess.
Yeah.
When we got upgraded.
You were.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was. Hey.
Remember when we got on the flight? Where was it when we got on that flight and we sat together? We had that really, really, really deep chat together. We were in a right mess, weren't we? But anyway,
that was it. That was it. We got upgraded to first. Yeah, we got upgraded to first class.
That was it.
This wasn't one where you fell asleep in the toilet. That's not that one.
That weren't that one, but that has happened. Yeah.
It's probably when I was talking to him again.
Right, next question. Whose poster did you have on your wall as a kid?
Oh, I had Mick Doohan. Kevin Swans was my main inspiration. So I had Mick Doohan, Kevin Swans, and Foggy poster.
Yeah. Oh well, unlucky. So you're in the casino. You've had a big night in the casino, James. It's been a successful night. You're 500 quid up. You've taken advantage of the free drinks. You've got a nice buzz on. It's come to the end of the night. You've got your £500 worth of chips in your hand, and you're like, right, I'm going to walk out of here. Do you walk out, put it in your pocket and think, I've done well there? Or do you do, like I always seem to do, I think, well, I didn't have this before I came in here, so I'm going to do one last bet, red or black, and try and double it. What's your approach?
A competitive sportsman's mind is it doesn't like to be comfortable, does it?
Never satisfied.
It's never satisfied. So yeah, I'd be all on red as I walk out, big time.
Good lad. Respect.
I didn't know. I didn't know about that there when the Yorkshire bit takes over, because I know I'd be straight out. I'd be like 500 quid. There we are. I'm rubbing my hands together. That's the 500 quid you started with.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't realise how much a Yorkshireman has to earn. So go on.
So over the years, you've raced lots of championships, lots of races, practice sessions. What out of all those years has been the standout moment by another rider where you thought, oh my God, have you just seen what he's done? Has there been a moment like that you could go, oh, when Rossi outbraked me into turn one, or has there been a moment that you've gone, that I'll never forget?
Yeah. and it still hurts today. When Bayliss pipped me at Assen across the line in race 2, because I didn't really mess up the chicane so much, and I definitely obviously thought that no one was going to be beating me across the line, but it was the battle before that, because my tyres were a bit better than Troy's towards the last few laps, and when he did that, he took his helmet off on the slowdown lap and literally threw it on the floor, smashed it on the floor, and went ballistic. And because he took his helmet off, I was able to see his eyes and his face as I caught him up to just congratulate him, basically. And he was absolutely wired. And it was one of the rare times, especially because Bayliss was so tenacious with it. I actually was like, whoa, that guy's got just as much demons as I have.
Yeah.
And that was a real moment. That's what.
Yeah, I can't blame him for throwing his helmet on the floor.
That was a real moment.
Go on.
Yeah, that was a real moment of realising why Troy Bayliss was so hard to beat. Because when the helmet comes off in that moment, just after you cross the line, after you've kind of like you've got the win of your life, because I can't tell you that I did have a bit of an advantage on the last half of that race, and for him to have won that race, I can't tell you how well he rode to beat me on that second race with the under. So that's definitely up there, even though it's painful because he hit me. But respect.
Yeah, no respect. Well, last question, and it's the main question really. We've had a slow build up across there. Them questions. I've asked you 4 relatively tricky ones, but this is the main question. You've had some incredible teammates throughout your career. I mean, who would you say has been your best ever teammate?
I would have never thought that question was going to come up.
I'm such a dick, I know.
Regis Laconey.
Yeah, I thought so.
I think we've heard enough from James.
Of course. Now, the 2 years, Paul, will go fun, very, very fun memories, definitely, Paul.
I just got a WhatsApp message saying, cut him off. What do you mean, Neil?
Is that the gallery on?
Yeah, exactly.
Gallery's on.
5 minutes, 1 second to stop talking. James, we better let you get going because we don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to ask you about your wrist, because we'd seen you'd had operations and all that, and you were talking about how it had healed and you had to go back. What's the latest on it?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a 10-year thing, the old wrist. Obviously, in 2011, I crashed at Aragon in Spain, just testing, and obviously I dislocated all the bones so badly that they had to partially fuse it. It retired me, obviously, and then I had another procedure after that to try and take away some pain because they had to put some more screws in. And literally, I took my mum into the hand and wrist specialist that I had because she got really bad arthritis in her knuckles, and I sat there with her just before Christmas in December. And I always asked him regularly, is there something new that can be done? And he said, actually, James, you've dropped on a little bit because I've done 12 procedures with this new Armande disc. And basically, they remove 4 bones out of the 8 in your wrist, and they carve an arc in the front, and they replace that with it's a disc that's shaped like an almond. That's why it calls it an almond disc. And supposedly, it creates like a ball and joint to give you more movement and less pain. And I'm 5 months in. And I've just been to the hospital again this morning just for another checkup because I'm still on very, very strong painkillers on the opioid with tramadol, and it's been unbelievably painful to get to recover from this. It's not like a normal break where 6 weeks you're back on your feet again. I still wake up 3 or 4 times a night in excruciating pain, even last night, and that's why I got the medication again this morning. And it could be another 2 or 3 months before it does settle down. It's like a 6 to 8 month recovery for it to settle down enough to know where you're going to be. And I knew it was going to be a huge operation, but like these next 3 weeks of lockdown where everybody's used to 2-3 weeks, but not 6. And that's what it's been like for me, really, with this procedure. It's been really, really tough mentally because I'm not used to months and months and months of absolutely excruciating pain. So it's been a battle and it's been a challenge, lads. But there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel now, and I'm going to have another procedure called manipulation in a couple of weeks' time, where they put you under and they do literally rag the wrist into the to the flexibility that it's supposed to have. I've had it already. I'm going to have another one done. You can keep on doing, and then, but it because it retired me from racing 9 years ago, and I'm still living like this with it. It's been a slog, lads.
I can imagine.
Years, I must admit.
Yeah, bloody hell.
I mean,
sounds horrendous.
It does, yeah. It
sounds horrendous.
I mean,
mate.
no, you say, you're not used to pain over that. I don't think anyone would be, And so, well, all the best with that. And I remember you put up that video of you having the manipulation, or that you were going to have it, and it sounded horrific. So, well, we wish you all the best with that and the recovery from it. And it doesn't sound fun at all, but let's hope that you get some more movement with it. That's what we're all hoping for. Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Right, James, thank you so much for chatting to us. It's been enlightening. I'm sure Neil will agree too, and we appreciate you giving up your time for us.
It's been a pleasure. It's
no
been,
problem.
like you say, really enlightening. Loved it.
No
Thanks,
problem
James.
at all. You're good friends of mine, and it's much easier to talk openly and honestly. And I hope everybody enjoys. Obviously, because of that, because we're good friends, we can speak in this way. And you're doing a top job, boys, of entertaining people. And I just hope that we can find a vaccine soon, and this work can get back to some kind of normality, and we can go and do what we love doing, which is watching motorcycle racing again soon.
Yeah, that's what we all want to do. Right, wish you all the best, James, and we'll catch up soon.
Catch up soon.
Cheers.
See you, mate.
Guys.
Cheers,
Take care, mate. Bye.
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 Oh, great to hear from James. He's so honest, isn't he, to share all those things with us. And we do appreciate, I'm sure people at home thoroughly appreciate someone talking so candidly. I know we got so much feedback from Scott Redding, how open he was. So it's someone that we know well, and we know that I didn't when I asked him at the start. I know the story, and you don't want to force someone or ask someone to be as open as that. But the fact he can be is great and great to hear. Just not easy, is it, for JT? It's never easy, but we know because of how he is, and people at home will know that the wrist thing is just another hurdle he'll overcome.
Yeah, it's almost like it's another challenge that he will conquer. But God, it sounds painful, doesn't it? It sounds awful.
That manipulation.
I've known JT forever. That is the most open interview I've never heard him talk quite like that. So, like I say, I knew bits of the story, but not a whole of it. The whole story, and the little things like. I had my dad. My dad was like really into bikes, loved building bikes, did a bit of racing himself. I always had someone to talk to, like when I'd finish a race or a race weekend at home, my dad would be like, oh yeah, you're panicking too much or you're rushing into you too much, whatever advice. Nearly all riders end up with that sort of background, but I'd never really thought. James had nobody. So he had to figure it out himself, and he was a little student, he'd absorb everything, wouldn't say that much, like I said, he kept everything, his cards close to his chest, but I definitely understand him more now, definitely.
Yeah, I apologise as well, there was a little bit at the beginning that I missed. I took myself out of the call by accident, so you two were just talking to each other. We are so untech savvy on this, aren't we? And what have you've messed up your recording at the same time?
Yeah, well, I always record the beginning, the middle bit, the main interview, and the end. And so far, I've messed up the beginning and the whole interview I ain't recorded. But this last bit, so far, you've got 3 minutes of me. So
we are trying to work it out. We're not exactly.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, good luck with that.
We are not tech gurus, as you might tell. And in the last episode, I did make a plea. So please, I don't know what we want. What do we want? We want someone to tell us how we should be doing it properly. But anyway, we hope you're enjoying it and still enjoying listening to our podcasts on lockdown. Originally, we've only ever made them for you guys. So let us know if there's anyone you want us to speak to. We've got loads more ideas of people. We've got a few things, irons in the fire. We're just waiting for them to come through for people to chat to. We had
to get Bayliss.
Well, Troy's definitely, and Chris Vermeulen actually is a great person to speak to. We have got Mick Doohan and Kevin Schwantz joining us sort of with BT, aren't we, on Sunday for the new series, Greatest Years, which I'm looking forward to, starting with 1992. We didn't quite get the concept across when we were talking about it on last Sunday's programme. Basically, we've done the greatest race, picked the greatest race. Well, now we're not going to pick a greatest years. We're just going to highlight some of the best races from some of the great years. So 1992, you've got your Schwantz against Uranus. Mick Doohan is there. Massive injuries for him. Big crashes. Just it was the 500 and the heart of that era.
It'll be fantastic. I've actually got motor course next to me in the office now on my bed from that year, and it's so interesting reading because I remember bits, but you don't remember it all, and that's what's going to be fascinating on Sunday watching some of them races.
I've got a motor course on order from that year.
Have you?
Yeah.
To try and just get up to speed with it.
Well, I was 14 at the time.
Yeah, I was younger than that, so incredible. Yeah.
Well, you were there. You were there.
I was there. No, I was only there for one. I was a wild card.
Right. Okay.
That wasn't my first full season.
No.
So.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So I don't know who you try
kid.
Whatever. It's in motorcourse. Says it in motorcourse. Right. We got a comment, by the way, Neil, on the last episode. Peachy on Twitter says that the Ride to Win DVD is available still.
Oh.
From Duke Video, but he reckons it's overpriced. Or he or she.
Go on,
sorry.
Go on. 99p.
£2.99. £2.99.
Rip
they
off.
missed the trick with it not being £1 and putting 100, didn't they? They missed the trick.
Yeah,
I think
missed opportunity.
The bargain
someone in marketing needs to kick up the arse for that. Yeah. Don't spend nearly £3 on it. It's a waste of time. Just don't.
Right. I always end by asking you what you're up to, what you've got going on this week, Neil.
Obviously, it's starting to rain, which is depressing. We've been so lucky with the weather. I've got quite a lot of jobs to do in the house because I live in an old barn and there's a lot of cobwebs. And it's well boring into it, but I'm going to have to be doing loads of vacuuming of cobwebs.
Send us a pic with your feather duster in a hand.
Yeah, exactly. I hate myself for saying it. Yeah, I might need some alcohol to get me through it. So, if it's not broke, it don't need fixing. That's what I say.
Right, okay. Well, you keep on the straight and narrow, won't you? Make sure you do.
What are you up to, Gav? Anything?
I've been doing some gardening this morning. I've put in more potatoes. My actual vegetable patch is going quite strong, so I've put some more potatoes in. I've put some bulbs in. I've got a chilli plant that's ready to... So I've been doing that today. And I'm cutting the lawn before it rains. So I'm fingers crossed. I need to get outside quickly and get that cut. So, right, that's going to be rather a long episode. So we do appreciate you getting to the end. Please remember to like and subscribe. Well, if you like it. If you didn't like it,
don't say it.
Just keep it to yourself.
Just don't. Or just tweet Gav and just call him a dick. That's what I'd do.
I was told we should get our own Gas It Out Twitter account, but do you know what? Technically, do you know what's going to happen if we start doing that?
Hashtag can't be arsed.
No, it's not just that. It's hashtag blatantly get something wrong. And I'd put something out that I shouldn't.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I do want. I want a Gas It Out t-shirt. That'd be cool.
Oh, yeah. I'd actually think that'd be quite, you could have quite a cool logo, couldn't you, on that? I want a cap.
Yeah, cool logo.
I want a cap. I like a trucker's cap.
Yeah. So if any sponsors out there, someone who can, if anyone from Cotton Gin,
no one from Swarthega has been in touch. I'll be honest.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's gone so wrong. You said we'll name drop a few things. You said we'd be multi-millionaires by now, and so far we've had an offer of 1 free tub of Swarthega, and Dougie Lampkin's Cotton Gin is yet to arrive on my doorstep. Brilliant.
Never going to happen. Right, Neil, thank you so much.
Gav, absolutely love you, man.
Right, I better go. See you later.
All right.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.